As China is soon to be released its 2015 gross domestic product reading, economists anticipate a nearly 7% growth rate in line with the official target. And now you're watching live footage from the press conference, and it's set to start very soon. Mr. Wang Baoan, Commissioner of National Bureau of Statistics, will introduce the total GDP amount and growth of industrial outputs, properties, retail sales, and fixed asset investments. Now let's take a look.
王保安先生，请他向大家介绍2015年国民经济的运行情况，并回答大家提问。出席今天发布会的还有国家统计局新闻发言人盛来运先生。
Also the spokesperson Seng Lai-yun of the Bureau.
下面我先请。
And now I would like to give the floor to Minister Wang.
尊敬的媒体的各位朋友，大家上午好。
Respected friends from the press, good morning. First of all,
请允许我利用这个
please
机会
allow me to take this opportunity
对媒体各位朋友
to express to
长期以
friends in
来
the press circle for
对
the
统计工作的
long-term
关
attention,
心、支持和爱护。
support, and care for the statistical work.
那么利用今天
Thank
这个
you
机会呢，
for that. And taking today's opportunity, I would like to centering on the year 2015 national economic
指标数据
operation and relevant indicators
给大家
and data
做一个发布。
and performance to give you an introduction.
2015年
In
面对错综复杂
2015,
的
faced with complicated international environment
和不断加大
and
的
increasing
经
downward
济下行
pressure
的压力，
on the
中
economy,
央国务院
the Central Party Committee and the State Council have maintained a strategic
国
focus
际
and comprehensively arranged both domestic and
坚持
international
稳
tasks,
中求进的
adhered to the general work guideline of making progress while
主动
maintaining
适应
stability,
引领新常态
actively adapted to and
以新
led
理念
the new
制造
normal,
新的实践
guided new practices
以新
with
战
new
略
theories,
谋求新发
and
展，
strived for new development with new
不断创
strategies,
新宏观调控，
innovated macro
深入推进
regulation,
结构性改
deepened
革
the structural
扎实推进
reform, and pushed
大众
forward
产业
mass entrepreneurship and
经济活动
innovation. As a result,
总体
the economy has achieved moderate but stable and sound development.
初步核算，
According to the preliminary estimation, the gross domestic product, or GDP, of China was 67,670.8 billion yuan in 2015, an increase of 6.9% at comparable prices. Specifically, the year-on-year growth of the first quarter was 7.0%, the second quarter 7.0%, the third quarter 6.9%, and the fourth quarter 6.8%. The value added of the primary industry was 6,086.3 billion yuan, up by 3.9%. The secondary industry was 27,427.8 billion yuan, up by 6.0%, and the tertiary industry 34,156.7 billion yuan, up by 8.3%. The gross domestic product of the fourth quarter of 2015 went up by 1.6% on a quarter-on-quarter base. And now I would like to draw a picture in 10 respects. First, agricultural production enjoyed another harvest. The total grain output in 2015 was 621.43 million tons, an increase of 14.41 million tons, up by 2.4%. The total output of summer grain was 141.12 million tons, an increase of 3.3%. The total output of early rice was 33.69 million tons, a decrease of 0.9%. The total output of autumn grain was 446.62 million tons, increased by 2.3%. The total output of cereals was 572.25 million tons, an increase of 2.7%. The total output of cotton in 2015 was 5.61 million tons, a decrease of 9.3%. Second, the upgrading of the industry was notable. The total value added of the industrial enterprises above the designated size was up by 6.1% at comparable prices. Analysis by types of ownership showed that the value-added growth of the state-holding enterprises was 1.4%, that of the collective enterprises 1.2%, shareholding enterprises 7.3%, and enterprises funded by foreign investors and investors from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan 3.7%. In terms of sector, the value-added grew by 2.7% in the mining sector, and the new industries were growing rapidly. The value added of the new technology industry grew by 10.2%, 4.1 percentage points faster in the industrial enterprises above the designated size, accounting for 11.8% of industrial enterprises above the designated size, 1.2 percentage points more than last year. Among the new technology industry, the manufacture of aerospace vehicles and equipment grew by 26.2%. Third, the growth of investment in fixed assets slowed down. In 2015, the investment in fixed assets was 55,159.0 billion yuan, a nominal year-on-year growth of 10.0% over last year, or a real growth of 12.0% after deducting price factors, 2.9 percentage points lower than last year in real term. Specifically, the investment by the state holding enterprises reached 17,893.3 billion yuan, a rise of 10.9%. Private investment reached 35,400.7 billion and the 109 billion yuan percent. The funds in place in 2015 were 57,300 billion yuan, up by 7.7%. The state budget went up by 15.6%, domestic 0.8%, self-raising funds up by 9.5%. Position of foreign investment down by 29.6%. The total investment development was 9,597 point, growth of 1.0%. In particular, residential buildings went up by 0.4%. The floor space nearly 1,544.54 million square meters. Market sales grew quite rapidly. In 2015, the total retail sales of consumer goods reached 30,093.1 billion yuan, a nominal annual rise of 10.7%. And specifically, the retail sales of consumer goods by enterprises above the designated size stood at 14,255.8 billion yuan. By regions, the retail sales in urban areas reached 25,899.9 billion yuan, and the retail sales in rural areas stood at 4,193.2 billion yuan. In terms of the online retail sales, it reached 3,877.3 billion yuan. And fifthly, the imports and exports decreased on a year-on-year basis. The total value of imports and exports was 24,584.9 billion yuan, down by 7.0%. The total value of exports was 14,135.7 billion yuan, down by 1.8%. The total value of imports was 10,449.2 billion yuan, down by 13.2%. Sixth, the consumer price increased moderately. The consumer price went up by 1.4% over the last year. Specifically, the price went up by 1.5% in urban areas, 1.3% in rural areas. Seventhly, residents' income. The national per capita disposable income of residents was 21,966 yuan, of 8.9% over last year, or a real percent after deducting price factors. Permanent residents, the per capita disposable income of urban 1,195 yuan, a nominal growth or a real growth of 6.6%. That for rural residents was 11,422 yuan, up by 8.9% or 7.5% in real terms. The per capita income of urban households was 2.73 times of the rural households, 0.02 less than last year. The median of the national disposable income was 19,281 yuan, a nominal increase of 9.7%. The Gini coefficient for national income for 2015 was 0.462. The number of rural migrant workers totaled 277.47 million. Eighthly, economic structure was optimized and upgraded. The industrial structure was further optimized. In 2015, the value added of the tertiary industry accounted for 50.5% of GDP, 2.4 percentage points higher than last year, and 10.0 percentage points higher than that of the secondary industry. The structure of domestic demand was further improved. The final consumption expenditure accounted for 66.4% of GDP, 15.4% percentage points higher than last year. The balance of regional structure was strengthened. The value added of industries above the designated size in the central and western regions increased by 7.6% and 7.8% compared with last year, 0.9 percentage point and 1.1 percentage points faster than the eastern region, respectively. Investment in fixed assets in the central region increased by 15.7%, 3.0 percentage points faster than the eastern region. Energy conservation and consumption reduction continue to make new achievements. In 2015, the energy consumption per unit of GDP decreased by 5.6% compared with last year. 9. Money supply maintained a steady growth. By the end of December, the balance of broad money, or M2, was 139.23 trillion yuan, an increase of 13.3% compared with that at the end of last year. The balance of narrow money, or M1, was 40.10 trillion yuan, a rise of 15.2%, and the balance of cash in circulation was 6.32 trillion yuan. 10. Population and employment situation were generally stable. By the end of 2015, the total population of mainland China was 1,374.62 million, an increase of 6.80 million over that of the end of the 2014, and the number of births in 2015 was 16.55 million, and the birth rate was 12.07 in 1,000. The number of deaths was 9.75 million, with a death rate of 7.11 in 1,000. The natural growth rate was 4.96 in 1,000, a decrease of 0.25 in 1,000. In terms of gender, the male population was 704.14 million, and female population was 670.48 million. The sex ratio of the total population was 105.02. The sex ratio at birth was 113.51. Population at the working age of 16 to 59 was 910.96 million. And generally speaking, China's economy in the year of 2015 has maintained within a proper range. The economic structure has been further optimized. The transformation and upgrading fastened further. New impetus accumulated, and the people's lives further improved. This shows that the Central Party Committee and the State Council have adopted new methods and new thoughts and new strategies in line with the laws of economic and social development, and they are scientific and effective. At the same time, we must also see that the international environment remains complex. The domestic restructuring and upgrading is on an uphill stage. Comprehensively deepening the reform faces daunting tasks going forward. We must carefully study and implement the spirits of the 18th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th plenary sessions of the 18th CPC Central Committee, and the recently concluded Central Economic Work Conference, as well as the decisions and arrangements of the Central Party Committee and the State Council. We must adhere to the guidelines of stable macro policy, precise industrial policy, flexible micro policy, practical reform policy, and solid social policy, and focus on the supply side structural reform so as to promote the national economy to maintain medium to high speed and move to medium to high end with medium to high income. With that, I have in 10 respects introduced briefly on the year 2015 situation of China's economic performance and relevant indicators. Thank you for your attention.